innocent. I am innocent. I didn't do it. Please hear me out, my king. But it all fell on deaf ears as Obiako was dragged and locked away in the dungeon. It all started in the kingdom of Ajuru. There lived a king named Igwe Ikenna. He was a man revered for his wisdom and strength. Yet, even with his power and vast wealth, the one thing that eluded him was an heir. Something that weighed heavily on his mind. He had 3 wives, Ekemma, Orine, and Obiako, though they all held important positions in the royal household, but none had borne him a child. The first wife, Ekemma, was bold, and she was a woman of iron will. She ruled the palace with an iron fist and had given up on trying to please the king with kindness or gentleness a long time ago. Instead, she dominated the palace staff and her fellow wives, often with a glare that could freeze a river. Orine, the second wife, was cunning in her ways. She was the queen of palace gossips, always whispering in corners with the servants, gathering information like a hunter stalking a prey. She had mastered the art of smiling sweetly while she plots evil schemes. And then there was Obiako, the third and youngest wife. She was a vision of beauty. Her skin glowed like the moon, and her gentle nature won over anyone who crossed her path. But what really set her apart was her innocence. This made Ekemma and Orine hate her so much. In their eyes, Obiako's beauty and purity made her a constant threat. The jealousy within the palace walls grew thicker with each passing day. Obiako, knowing the envy around her, went about her days with a smile on her face, tending to the king's needs and spreading kindness wherever she went. The other wives, however, saw her as a ticking time bomb. It was only a matter of time, they believed, before Obiako's charm would fully capture the king's heart, leaving them in the shadows forever. One evening, Ekemma and Orine met in a dark corner of the courtyard. Their faces were twisted with bitterness and anger. "We have to act," Ekemma said. "If we don't get rid of her soon, she'll have the king wrapped around her fingers. He already spends more time with her than with us." Orine nodded, coiling her lips into a smirk. "You're right. But how? We can't simply send her away. The king will notice." Ekemma's eyes gleamed with malicious intent. "No, we won't send her away. We'll make it look like she had tried to poison him." Orine's smirk deepened. "Poison the king? But that's madness." Ekemma leaned in closer and whispered, "Not poison him, you fool. We'll make it look like she did. We'll slip something into the food she prepares for him, and when he's about to eat it, we'll stop him. We'll say we saw her adding a strange substance into his meal. How about that?" Orine's eyes widened with excitement. "Yes, the king will believe us, and she'll be thrown into the dungeon. She'll rot away in there and we'll be rid of her once and for all." The two women laughed it off softly and they set their plan in motion. The next day, Obiako, happily unaware of the treachery brewing around her, prepared the king's favorite meal, which was pepper soup and pounded yam. The aroma filled the palace and corridors, making everyone's stomach rumble with hunger. Ekemma and Orine, pretending to be friendly, offered to help Obiako in the kitchen. "Let us assist you, dear sister," Ekemma said with a sweet smile that barely hid her malice. Obiako, ever trusting, nodded gratefully. "Thank you. The king will be so pleased with this meal." As Obiako busied herself with chopping vegetables, Ekemma and Orine exchanged a quick glance. While Obiako's back was turned, Orine swiftly slipped a small pouch of poison into the soup. It dissolved instantly, leaving no trace. Then Ekemma whispered to Orine, "It is done." That evening, the king sat at the head of the grand dining table, his eyes twinkling with anticipation as the meal was brought before him. Obiako stood by his side, beaming with pride. Just as King Ikenna picked up his spoon, Ekemma let out a dramatic gasp, leaping from her seat. "No, my king! Don't eat that!" she cried, rushing to his side. The king was startled. He lowered his spoon. "What's the meaning of this, Ekemma?" Ekemma threw herself at the king's feet, holding onto his robe. "I beg you, do not eat that food. I saw Obiako adding something strange to it. I fear she is trying to poison you." Gasps filled the room. The king's face darkened, and he turned to Obiako, his voice trembling with disbelief. "Is this true?" Obiako's eyes widened in shock. "No, my king, I would never." But before she could finish, Orine joined in. "I saw it too, my lord. She was acting suspiciously while preparing the meal." The king, torn between his trust in Obiako and the accusations of his other wives, called for the royal dog. The dog, a large loyal beast that had served as a tester for years, was brought to the table. The king ordered that the dog be given the food. Everyone watched in tense silence as the dog devoured the meal. Moments later, the dog let out a strangled yelp, convulsed, and collapsed on the floor, dead. The king's face hardened. "Take her to the dungeon," he roared. "I want her locked away until I decide her fate." Obiako's cries of innocence echoed through the palace as the guards dragged her away. "I did nothing wrong. Please believe me." But her words fell on deaf ears. Days passed and Obiako languished in the cold, damp dungeon. She had been given no food or water, and her body grew weaker with each passing moment. She prayed constantly, tears streaming down her face as she begged for deliverance. Meanwhile, Ekemma and Orine were joyful in their victory. They walked through the palace with their heads held high, certain that they had secured their places as the king's favored wives. King Ikenna, though furious at the supposed betrayal, could not shake the nagging feeling that something was amiss. He had always known Obiako to be kind and gentle. How could she commit such a heinous act? His heart heavy with doubt. He summoned the kingdom's most revered traditionalist, a wise elder named Nzoba, to help him find answers. Nzoba arrived at the palace with a slow, deliberate pace, his walking stick tapping the ground rhythmically as he approached the throne. His eyes were sharp. The entire court fell silent as the old man stood before the king. "I have come, your highness, to bring you the truth," Nzoba said. King Ikenna nodded, desperation clear in his eyes. "Please, Nzoba, I must know the truth. Is Obiako guilty of trying to poison me?" The traditionalist closed his eyes for a moment, murmuring softly under his breath as if communicating with the spirits. When he opened his eyes, they gleamed with certainty. "Your wife Obiako is innocent," Nzoba declared. "She was falsely accused. The true culprits will be revealed in time." King Ikenna's heart raced. How long will it take for the truth to be known? Nzoba raised his hands. "In 14 market days, the truth will come to light. But in the meantime, there is another matter we must address: your lack of an heir." The king nodded solemnly. "Yes, I need a son to continue my line." Nzoba smiled faintly and gestured to a sack he had brought with him. From it, he produced 2 palm fruits. "These palm fruits are blessed," Nzoba said, holding them out. "Each of your wives must eat one. The wife whose heart is pure will bear you a child within 7 days." The king's eyes lit up with hope. "Thank you, Nzoba." Ekemma and Orine, standing at the edge of the room, exchanged excited glances. Finally, their chance had come. The palm fruits were distributed, and Ekemma and Orine wasted no time devouring them. convinced that they would soon be carrying the king's heir. But in their haste, they carelessly tossed the fruit's remains into the palace gardens, where a small stream carried them down to the dungeons. Obiako, weak and starving, noticed the remnant of the palm fruits as they floated past her cell. Driven by desperation, she reached through the bars and grabbed the fruit husks, eating them without a second thought. She had no idea that very fruit was meant to bring forth an heir which has been discarded had landed right into her hand. Days passed, and the palace buzzed with anticipation. Ekemma and Orinne waited patiently for signs of pregnancy, while Obiako, still locked away in the dungeon, grew weaker by the day. However, something strange began to happen. On the 7th day, as the sun rose over the kingdom, Obiako woke with a strange feeling in her belly. She touched her stomach and felt a small flutter. Her heart raced. Could it be? Was she pregnant? In the palace, Ekemma and Orinne were growing increasingly anxious. Neither of them showed any signs of pregnancy, and they couldn't understand why. They had eaten the palm fruits after all. What could have gone wrong? On the 14th market day, Nzoba returned to the palace, his eyes twinkling with the knowledge he had gained during his absence. He approached King Ikenna with a solemn expression. "Your Highness," he said, "the truth has been revealed." The king's heart, pounding with anticipation, leaned forward. "What is it, Nzoba? What have you discovered?" Nzoba gestured to the two wives standing by the throne. "It is not Obiako who tried to poison you. It was your other wives, Ekemma and Orinne, who conspired to frame her. They placed poison in your food, hoping to rid themselves of her." The entire court gasped in shock, and Ekemma and Orinne's face went pale. They tried to deny it, but Nzoba's next words sealed their fate. "The palm fruits you gave them revealed their deceit," Nzoba said. "They discarded the remnants carelessly, and it was Obiako, pure of heart, who unknowingly consumed them. She is the one who will bear you your child." At that moment, Obiako was brought up from the dungeon, her round belly visible for all to see. The king's eyes filled with tears as he rushed to her side, embracing her tightly. "Forgive me, Obiako," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "I should never have doubted you." Obiako, tears streaming down her face, nodded. "I forgive you, my king." As for Ekemma and Orinne, they were banished from the kingdom. Their heads that they held high was bowed low in shame as they were led away. The palace celebrated the coming birth of the heir, and King Ikenna, forever grateful to the gods for revealing the truth, he crowned Obiako as his queen. 9 months later, Obiako gave birth to a healthy baby boy, and the kingdom of Ajuri rejoiced. The king had his heir, the wicked wives were gone, and Obiako ruled beside the king with grace and wisdom. Her kindness and purity was known to everyone in Ajuri kingdom. That is the end of the story. My dear viewers, do you think Obiako was careless, especially when she had the suspicion that the other wives were jealous of her? Maybe if she was on her guard, the incident of poisoning would not have happened, thereby sending her to the dungeons. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please don't forget to like, share to your loved ones, and subscribe. Also turn on your notification bell so that you will always be notified once I post a new story. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on my next one.